And the reason why I applied for sent in this workshop was that actually that's a subject that I have been interested in for a very long time. And I was, in my personal experience, pretty disappointed by my experiences with therapists, supervisors, trainers, concerning that subject. And let me ask you a question. Who of you, just raise your hand, who of you likes sex?
Who of you?
Who of you?
What did you
Who of you likes sex?
Touches.
Okay, so, right, and I'm kind of similar, so, and for me it's a very crucial aspect of something that I want to be in touch with when I'm the client in therapy, and I also want a therapist who can meet me with that, and not only with my sexuality, of course, but also as someone who can meet my desire to learn more about it, to understand it better, to understand myself better, to know if I have a woman therapist in front of me, of course I'm interested in experiencing and exploring the differences between her sitting with me in the room, etc., etc., and it never worked. So I had, not traumatizing, but unsatisfying experiences. And I don't know if my statistics are representative, but I had a strong urge to bring that subject up, and it's more or less self-study and experimenting with my own clients, if I can say that. And it becomes more and more clear to me what it is about, what we have to do, what we have to look at, and I want to share that. And I wish I could sit on your chair and listen to someone who is more experienced than me, because I see myself as a total beginner in that field, and I'm sure there are a lot of people here in the room who might have much more experience with that than I have. So let's see where that goes. The first thing I want to do before I go into some introduction, well, let me give you a short oversight what I'm going to do with you. I want to do 1 hour leading you through a process where we are going to experiment with some exercises, exploring a little bit of like edges and difficulties with that subject, so that everyone works with himself a little bit. And then the last 30 minutes for me are open. We can do whatever we want. We can do another exercise if you want. We can just take questions. We can just sit here and see what happens. So the last 30 minutes are more your minutes, and I'll be here for you. So whenever you want, whatever you want, we can decide what that is. So the first thing I want to do now is, just as an experiment, is I want all the men in this room to go on this side, to sit on the chairs on this side, and all the women to sit on the rest of the chairs. And you can probably imagine that from this we could start to work. Right? There is enough material that we could go deeper into the bodies and try to connect to memories, try to connect to personal stories, as well as wishes and needs, protection, expectations. What would be my impulse to do now to make it better, or different, or balanced, or more exciting, or whatever? And that we could work with that. We will not do that. I just want to show you this and make you experience this, because this is an introduction, a sensing introduction to the polarity that we are dealing with when we are dealing with sexuality. We are just manifesting it here in terms of obvious representations. And sometimes they may not be so obvious, because some people may say, I don't know where I belong, or so. I'm not feeling safe here, I'm not feeling safe there, or something like this. But nevertheless, when we're talking about sexuality, the basic idea is that we're talking about the interaction and the dance between these two polarities. Either abstract, like yin-yang, or masculine-feminine, or really down-to-earth, very concrete, a man meeting a woman. And this could also be a symbol for your male inside and your female inside meeting. That's why I like your movement that you did is this group also represents something that we have inside of us. And sexuality for me, like in a short definition, is these polarities coming together and being able to create something new. A new child, art, being creative with artistic or consciousness. You said alert, right? There is, in this separation of these polarities, and we could do even more to make it even more separate and differentiate it, like then you can do male work, masculine work here, and feminine work here, and they will become more polar. And then we have a creativity, a tension, that can be dissolved into consciousness, becoming more conscious of something. So in my understanding, these are the three ideal positive works of sexual energy, polar energy. But there are many destructive elements too. If we can't have that energy into one of these three, it will probably go into something destructive.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
You didn't mention vitality. I mean, regeneration of the individual's vitality is also a result of sexual intercourse.
That's true. Yes, that would belong for me into the broad spectrum of consciousness, but it's right.
Okay.
It's an aspect that adds to it, like a regeneration
Yes.
of myself, and that's true. That's a very good aspect too. Yeah, but the main thing is it's creative. We are creating out of an energetic state. We are creating something that is manifested. Yeah, that's the positive way of it. But I think most of the time we are dealing with the negative aspects of it, which we have the friction, but the friction cannot be conducted into something creative. And what happens? It becomes destructive. It becomes sick. It becomes compromised. And that's what we're dealing with then. And since this is a very, very strong energy, maybe the strongest energy we have as human beings on this planet, the destruction is enormous. And maybe we can address that later during the workshop a little bit of like how do we work with the destructive part of that. Okay, having that experience, now you can choose where you want to sit. So take a moment and choose where you want to sit and see if you can.
Space.
You can, just try to find out how you can make your way back to wherever chair you want to sit on. There are situations in your life where you are in the position where you were before and you cannot run away. Or you can run away, but it doesn't really lead to a more positive state. So just keep these two modes inside of you and these memories, and both of them are valuable. Both of them are conductive for life energy. Maybe I should give you like a very short summary about myself. I studied psychology about 10 years ago. I finished that, and I was always very interested in the combination of psychological work and body work, and was very disappointed at university where it's not addressed at all, almost. Just some clinical, physiological stuff. And then I went into a long search for a work that fits and my wishes, my desires to combine it. And I never found it. I never found something that really represents fully what I was looking for. Which you probably all experience in a similar way. So I combined different things, and what I'm going to introduce to you is the way how I work, how I do it, and I want to do it as practical as possible because that's what we can take away for our own work, I think. And the basic pillars of my work are body psychotherapy system that's called Bodynamic. Coming from Denmark, has a very differentiated view on the developmental stages of the child and the ego functions that develop in combination with our muscles, like how we move and what movements come, and what it does to our muscles, tonus, when we don't have the experience that we need. And we can have too much tonus and be too tense, so to speak, and we can have too little tonus and be too slack. And I will talk about a few things out of this body dynamic system, which is, in my view, the most differentiated body-oriented system that I have known up to now. Then I'm taking a lot of knowledge from the so-called process psychology or process work by Arnold Mindell. Who knows Arnold Mindell or his work? Yes, it's probably statistically fitting my experience. Not many people know it. It's basically the idea of the therapeutic process being a process coming from the client, and I as a therapist am enhancing the process, but I'm not bringing my own process into it, which sounds much easier than it is. Because the difficult thing is to really see what's the client's and what is mine. And to pick up very subtle signals, because the therapeutic process is the process where the client does not go by himself or herself. He or she needs help. So I have to pick up something that's unconscious for the other person and bring it out, bring it out, bring it up. That's called amplification. I amplify it, I make it bigger so that the other person can see it. We will practice this today in this workshop with our subject. And then I was trained in martial arts for a decade and more, and I also learned muscle relaxation that's following the Feldenkrais work, but is more precise as a treatment, called somatic education. And I'm taking some principles from them because they have taught me on the bodywork level how to follow the client and go with the pattern and never against it. Now, whatever the client does, I'm going with it and never against it. I'm sometimes seemingly going against it because I'm seeing another part in him going against it. So I'm going with the other part in him that is against it. Yes. But I'm always going with something that is already there. And that's also a way how we can relax our muscles very, very quickly when we go with the tension and not against it, with what is still a secret in most bodyworks, interestingly. That's a martial arts philosophy also. Go with the opponent. If I'm attacked, I'm going with the attack and not against it. Okay? So here, what we're going to practice today is whatever comes up, we're going with it, and we're trying to see where does the process go if we just go on with it, if we don't stop it, if we don't let it get stuck or divert. How does the flower, if the flower comes up, what flower comes out of the thing, even if it looks strange and ugly and useless, but if we make it grow, what comes out of it? And often it is something completely different than we thought. So, yeah, I would say these are the three most important influences that you will experience today. And I call my own work, I gave it my own name because I didn't know how to call it. I call it cat-like, because before I started, a friend of me asked, like, what's the result of your work? What do people get out of it? And I said, they begin to be more like cats. They begin to move smoothly, more smoothly, be more soft, be more autonomous on their own, be more stable, and at the same time very social. Cats can be very social. If you look at lions, lion families, tiger families, they can be very like cuddling and cozy. And all this develops. So the cat is like the symbol of where it goes when you're discovering the wilder energies. And you're coming back to your original personal energies and living them more out. Yeah, let me give you a little bit of theory before we go into the exercise. Some basic principles I'm working with are these here. The first one I think you all know or familiar with is change comes through experience and not through mental changing of concepts or beliefs. Fundamental change comes through experience, and experience comes through the senses of our body. We can't make an experience without our senses. Then a process work attitude is that the client knows the process. The process is in the client. He knows the way, she knows the way, I don't. I need the client to get to know what's next, what's the next step. Which means that I, as a therapist, have to be very perceptive and not so much knowledgeable. It's not so much about knowing more or understanding more or teaching something, but it's more about like perceiving the other person, and I'm the instrument of perception. So I'm perceiving the other person through my body and my senses. So this one I already talked about. I go with the pattern, whatever comes up. And this is especially important when we're working with sexuality, because sexual energy is such a strong energy. There is nothing to go against that energy which is stronger. So I don't know any energy that we have that is stronger than sexual energy, so you can't go against it. Whatever you put against it will be just a block or a struggle inside. But sexual energy is life energy in a way, and it has to flow freely. So if you don't follow this energy and be brave enough to go everywhere with that energy, you're in trouble. And we are in trouble. Yeah, that's where we are. We don't follow the pattern, so we become neurotic. So we cut off ourselves from the feeling and the sensing part in order to become a virtual person. We get into a virtual reality, having a picture of our own, picture of our sexuality, but we are not connected to it fully. And then another very important thing for me is healing is possible. I recognize that in the medical and therapeutic field, people stop talking about healing. It's like, no, we don't, this is like too esoteric, or this is like a strange. We are talking about coping and reintegrating people and bringing them back to functioning in society and all this. But healing for me is a very specific process, and the decisive thing about healing for me is healing starts with pain. It's the pain in the body that initiates a process that we call healing, which is a restoration of the natural function. I'm going back to natural. I'm going back to how it should be. And the process itself doesn't have to be painful, but the pain is like a signal so that this process can start. Yeah, maybe you know when you cut yourself, like in the kitchen, you just cut yourself, and it doesn't hurt so much. You're just shocked. You say, "Whoa, shit! I cut myself," but it doesn't hurt. The next day, it hurts. Why? Because it started healing. Yeah. The hurt is bringing your attention to it. It's bringing your blood to it. Your nervous system is more attuned to it, so the energy goes to the wound to heal it. So the pain is necessary to focus the energy towards the wound. And this is not only physically so. For me, it is the same psychologically. The pain attracts our consciousness, and that's important for healing. And I love to talk about healing because we have to see that a lot of things that happen in therapy are not healing. They are coping, they are training, they are coaching, they are all kinds of things which are also necessary and nice. But what we need is another attitude towards pain. And my own experience as a client is that therapists tend to avoid pain. And this is just my opinion. And I want to mention here that whatever I say, don't believe me. I don't want you to believe the opposite either. Just don't believe anything. Think for yourself. I have met so many people in therapeutic schools, and to me they are like belief systems, and people are religious about their teachers, and they're not even conscious of it. They have accepted the axioms and the assumptions, and they take them for granted, and they never question them. So I would prefer you to question everything and don't believe anything.
What is healing for you?
Well, as I said, it's complicated to go into the detail, but in an abstract way, I would say it's the restoration of the natural functioning of an organism that starts from the pain of the wound or the hurt. And I could go more into that, but I would have to explain a lot of other things, because healing for me is one process out of 6 possible processes. I can have 6 kinds of processes in my work as a therapist, and one of them is healing. Another one would be learning, like teaching. I'm learning something new. There's no pain, I'm just learning something new. Another one is destruction. So I'm talking about these 3 main states in therapy. The first one often is destruction. As I confront something, I destroy a defense mechanism. Don't take it too martial. It doesn't mean that I'm fighting against it, but something is analyzed in a way like it's destructed, deconstructed, so that there is new space for something else. So there is a destruction process, destruction of blocks, destruction of suppression, destruction of numbness. And then it's possible to have a healing process, because energy is free. Suddenly there's pain, and suddenly from the pain there can be healing that couldn't be there before. And then after the healing, since the natural organism is functioning again, then there can be development. Then I can start to learn, to differentiate, to make it new experiences, integrate them in all this. And for me, these are the main 3 stages. Does that make sense so far for you? For the moment? Yeah.
If the first stage is distraction, for me this is like the opposite of what you said before, that you go with a pattern, that you go with the energy, that you go with the client, and that the client goes away.
Yeah.
For me this is, I don't know.
Yeah, if I give you an example. If the client comes with, for example, with a depression, like he's depressive, and so he is talking about things that are bad, then I'm going with him so that he becomes more conscious of what he's doing, how he's thinking, how he's behaving, how his emotions are going. And this process of looking at that together destroys his defense mechanism of not looking at it.
Okay, then I have another interpretation of the word destruction, because for me destruction is more like aggressive, and this what you described now for me is like evolution or changing of the world of the client.
Yeah, but at the same time it is aggressive, because if you have the defense mechanism on one side and consciousness on the other side, it dissolves, it. And it's like the sun shines, the sun comes up, and suddenly certain things are dissolving because of the light and the radiance. Okay? And the most important thing is that in these 3 stages, the therapist has a completely different role. My role as a therapist, as a confronter, is something else than when I am allowing and making space for a healing process, which is very quiet, and I'm not doing anything at all, almost. It's just happening because I'm giving the space for it, and I'm sensing empathically with it. And then there's development where I become like a teacher, like a mentor. Maybe the client needs to learn something, how to do this, how to make contact, how to whatever. And then I become more like someone who, like a coach who helps learning. Okay, does that make sense so far? So these are very important principles in combination of this body work with the process work. And now I want you to go with me into an exercise or an experiment, like a little self-exploration. And you choose a partner, so you go together in couples. And what you're going to do is, both of you have about 7 minutes time just to talk and delve into an experience that you had where maybe you were in a therapeutic context, if you can, or a teaching context, where there was something, you received some erotic or sexual signals, whatever that was. It could be from someone else, and you just saw it, or it was someone approaching you, or it was from inside of you and no one noticed it. It was just you inside noticed something that you would interpret as sexual or erotic. And you are describing your partner what the signals were, what signal did you observe, what happened, and then how did you react to that signal. What were your physical reactions? What were your emotional reactions? What did you think? Maybe you had fantasies. Just go shortly into that. And then, as the third step, try to formulate like a question from your point of view now. Like, what would you like to explore in that situation? Is there anything unsolved? Something that makes you curious? Something that you feel like you would like to change? Now, whatever your question is towards this situation, try to formulate it together. And then you switch roles. So that both of you have, I will look at the time too and give you a sign, so that you have about 7 minutes each exploring this one situation. And afterwards we will do an exercise, everyone for himself, with the material that you gathered. Okay, so this is just the preparation for it. Everyone all right? Did everyone get the task? And I will leave that slide so you can look at it. Okay, so choose a partner. Your question, what do you want? I need a contract. I need, because otherwise I have no task. I'm just sitting there saying, wow, that's an interesting story. The next thing is that I took up the signal, you did it, you picked up your signal and you amplified it. With no judgment. And since we're doing it moving, it's much easier to do it without judgment, because if I do it just thinking about it, it's very probable you're going into categories, concepts, judgments, and then we're lost. But I want you to go into that little signal, into that hotspot, make it bigger to see what is it going to, where is the process leading you to, and it's leading you to qualities. Qualities that are most of the time not really dominant in you, but they are new. There is something that you don't have available easily. And then you sense them in your body, and then you look at the situation, at your own, at yourself, again with sensing these new qualities. And I did almost nothing. I didn't intervene, I didn't make any suggestions, I just led you through the process of sticking to it. You stayed to your own process and you didn't go left and right. These three qualities, of course, they will disappear. It's not that you have them now and it's over. But now we can start a learning process where you can say, I want to have that quality. I want to have more of this quality. How can I do that? And then the work is pretty easy, because if I have my skills as a therapist to teach the person to learn these skills, I have a motivated client who can sense where the journey is going and can see, okay, it's not there yet, but this is what I want. And then, of course, we need the body to teach that, because remember, experience is the basis of change. So, of course, we need more experience together and going through a learning process. But I'm not working on problems anymore. I'm working on development. And the client is with me. Yeah, so this is one part of process work that we just did. And you can imagine that with a client in therapy, it takes an hour or more to do that same process. But generally, this is a very generic process that I often use, especially with difficult and negative things. So, for example, if a client comes and complains about the aggressiveness of the others, then I take the energy of the aggressiveness and let them take that inside and live that signal, and they become like these strange figures, and then they can integrate that. And with sexuality, that's very helpful, because there are all these issues that are blocked away, full of shame, numbed, full of fear, and it becomes very playful. Now you moved alone, you did it by yourself, but I often do it with the client. Either I copy him or I play the other figure when they're two. So we become very playful, and then we are how do you say, like on the floor, or something may happen, and it's always about the consciousness for the energy and the quality in it, and then embody it and take the embodiment out into the imagination of how would that look in life. And maybe that's a good point to add something that I find very important. This is a very basic And you see steps here, and these steps stand for phases of development, qualities we develop throughout our early childhood. And so in very short terms, these 4 steps are the conditions to get into something that is giving us a basis for sexuality. So when we're talking about sexuality, in my view, we're not talking about an aspect of our life. We are actually talking about what we are.
Can we please move?
Yes, I think you have to.
No, can you move forward? Can you please go out?
So we are made out of sexuality. That's the stuff that we are made of. It's not, I don't see it as an aspect of our life that we have to talk about someday, but it's something that we're made of course. So when we are talking about sexuality, most of the time we're actually talking about something that we call sexual, but it is most of the time not sexual at all. It is based on like something like body sensation, how I connect to someone, how I integrate my emotions, if I can stand high energies, how I see myself as a man or a woman, and all these things. And that has nothing to do with sexuality in itself. It's just an ingredient that ties into when we try to experience or express sexuality. Okay? So, what I'm doing with my clients, when I see that there is an issue that shows up in sexuality, then I look at what do we have to develop first so that we can get to the whole box. Because sexuality for me is the whole box. It's like everything is coming together. So it's, of course, it has to feel safe and self-trust. And then there has to be sensing of needs and expressing one's own needs. And then there's autonomy, that I can be standing on my own feet and that I can explore the world, be spontaneous in contact, keep my center in contact with someone. And then the whole thing about expressing my energy, my will, my power. That's what the women said over there when you were sitting there, like, there's so much power suddenly. Like, expressing that power and coming out with that, with your wildness and whatever it is. And if you have that, if you're stable here, if you're healthy here, then we can start about heart opening and sensuality in connection. Because that's what we mainly mean when we're saying sexual, right? What we mean is there is a heart feeling, a heart connection, and a sensual experience at the same time. It can be for myself, it can be with someone else, but that's it. Yeah. And the kids, when they start developing this, they're about 5 years old. That's the developmental stage. And it starts with the heart. It begins with the heart, and then the heart energy should connect down into the pelvic movements and pelvic muscles so that we can connect our heart feelings with sensuality. That would be perfect. But most of the time it's broken, so we are working with reconnecting them and bringing it together. And it's a 5-year-old child. It's not even capable of reproducing, of having sex in the way, and it's not interested in having sex, of course. That's the act that comes much later with puberty. That we are 5 years old and we already build our roots of sensuality and heart connection. And if it's broken there, it's broken. And it has to be to reconnect. The difficulties with sexuality is that it is a very high energy, and that whenever it comes out and we're having a block somewhere here, it's going with a high energy against the block, and that hurts. And that hurts much more than if there is just lower energy. That's why with sexuality, issues come up that we don't notice in our daily life because we just skip them. We just keep them out of consciousness. But my experience is, I would say 90% or 95% of sexual problems are not sexual at all. And that's very relieving also, because we can work with basics and we don't have to go into what we would fantasize would be the real sexual thing. Because we have just these milestones and blocks. If they're built together, the rest will come by itself. Normally I would say I don't have to train my clients in something sexual if the rest is there. Yeah, so, and that's maybe the difference to people who have a tantric approach, or a so-called tantric approach, where they think they can solve the problem through the sexual act, which is just the act. It is not sexuality itself, it is just our fantasy and our concept of how we could express it. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this workshop is that I noticed when my clients become more centered and more integrated, they always become more attractive. They always become more erotic. They become more delicious. And I'm not speaking about women, I'm speaking about men too. And I tell them that. I say that when they are ready for it. But I give them the feedback to say, well, do you know how it looks from the outside when you are in this state? Do you want to know? And I tell them like, what is your effect as a woman on me as a man when she's in that state? And so I give her a feedback so that she can synchronize it with her own sensation. Most of the time I hear is, I would never have expected that. She's very sad, she's sitting there, totally sad, totally like centered and sensing herself, but sad. And I have to say that she's much more present in her body than before, and that for me is erotic, that someone is in his body, just present. And I tell her that, of course, she's sad, and a man telling her that now she has a very attractive radiance and shining around her, that's like a new concept, so it brings everything new together. It's like strange. But as a client, I would have wished my therapist to give me much more feedback on that, because I'm often confused. What is attractive about me and what isn't? I want the feedback. And all my clients up to now have reacted very positively and gratefully to getting that feedback and having it just spoken out very plainly and saying, wow, if you could see you through my eyes, you would see how beautiful you look when you're in that state. Go to the mirror, just walk. So I say these things.
I think that you need a mirror of another eye. To look in the mirror is not the same.
What is not the same?
It's not the same to look in the mirror yourself. You need mirroring from another eye.
That's why I'm saying it first and then send them to the mirror. So that
I wouldn't send them to the mirror.
Okay. Well, I find it important that we take all these impressions together with the sensation, with the feedback, and see that the tears and the sadness in the eye at the same time see, wow, there's a shining in there. And I shine. And of course, the whole workshop here is not about working with clients. This workshop is about you. This workshop is about like how do you integrate your own, however you want to call it, but it's your life energy, and it's the edges where you are becoming shy or ashamed or blocked or afraid. And I think that is the core issue. The core issue is where are you in your development as a therapist? Have you integrated it? Because then you don't need any technical information about it. It's like how mature have you become in terms of all these packages that have to be there so that you can be a full grown-up sexual person. And my view, my understanding as far as I can see is that we have much more people who never experienced sex, even though they think they did. So we do something and we think that's sex because that's like in the movies. You know? That's what they do in the Hollywood movies. But we don't have the capacities to really experience it because we are not centered, we are not there, we are virtual, we are just in our minds. We are just releasing energy, or we just feel accepted, we just feel taken care of or held, and then we call that sex. And we never explore and ask, could there be more? And I learned something interesting lately is caterpillars don't have sex. It is butterflies that have sex. You know the little animals that become butterflies later?
Yes.
They don't have sex.
Caterpillars.
Caterpillars. Caterpillars. Open in German. Open. And of course, because it's the butterflies, that's the full mature animal that it has to become. And that's a good picture for me. It's like you have to become a butterfly first, because before you get to know what sex really could be and is, and using that sexual energy for transformation, for consciousness, and being in contact with someone at the same time, which is a big challenge. You see, I could probably talk about that for a very long time. Before we finish, is there any burning question, anything that you're having on your lips and you want to throw into the room? And the last thing that I want to throw into the room is that I have a very old idea that I just put into words and a flyer that is lying out there with a list, and also you can see it here. I want to find or found a study group, like a rather number of few people, who want to explore that subject on a personal level, and also like with a therapeutic idea behind it, with a therapeutic skill training also, but without the normal social rules and norms that we have that constrict us and keep everything in a certain box. So if you feel like inclined after what you have heard, what you're reading here, to be part of such a study group, you can get in contact with me. You see my email address down there. And you can also pass it on to someone else if you know someone who could be interested. We'll probably host it in Freiburg, and the idea is to meet 1 or 2 days and work with these issues with the ideas that I presented to you today. Because I feel the need to exchange not only with teachers and clients, but also with people like peers who are open enough and who are brave enough to go further. And my sense is that how I see the therapeutic field, even the body psychotherapy, we have to go further. At least I want to. I want to go further than what I have learned from my teachers. So having said that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to have a very small ending round that you're maybe just giving one word as a feedback, how that workshop was for you. You can give 1 or 2 words. Just how do you feel leaving now after these a bit more than 90 minutes? You want me to go away? Am I in the light? Okay.
Thank you.
So you can give feedback